right. Hi, everybody. I am Alexa Tinsley. I'm the Director of Programs here at Jett Foundation. We are so excited for our webinar today on air travel with Michelle and Alan from All Wheels Up. I am going to give everybody about 30 more seconds or so to hop on. But while we are waiting, I would love if everybody could put, if they are comfortable, put their name and where they are from and either their or their child's age in the chat. We would love to hear where you guys are coming from. So I will give it another minute and then we'll get going. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for hopping on again. I love seeing where everybody is from. We are so excited you are here with us. Again, I am Alexa Tinsley. I'm the Director of Programs for Jett Foundation. Thank you all for joining us here today. We're so excited to have you. We are so grateful to Michelle Irwin and Alan Chalet from All Wheels Up talking to us today, sharing what they're doing, their expertise, and their knowledge. We could not do this without them, so thank you guys. Michelle is the founder and president of All Wheels Up, and Alan is the vice president, so they are very knowledgeable. So ask all the questions. Before we get started, I just want to mention a few things. We are this, so this will be available later down the line on our website and our YouTube for you guys to watch, or if you aren't able to watch the whole thing or you know someone that wasn't able to attend, it will be available to them after the fact. You can always reach out to me if you don't see it come through, Alexa at Jett Foundation, but it will be there for you guys. The presentation will last anywhere between 20 and 40 minutes. So after that, we will make sure to have a Q&A at the end. There is a Q&A panel. It's like two little like comment boxes that we will primarily be using that for Q&A and to answer questions. But if for some reason you do put it in the chat, we will try to make sure that we get to it. We are also streaming live to Facebook, and if any questions come in, we will be doing our best to get to those, but we will primarily leave it to the Zoom and be primarily looking at that, but we will try to do our best. If for some reason we aren't able to get to your questions, we will be making sure that they get to Michelle and Alan to answer them if possible. So with that, that's all from me, and I will hand it over to Michelle and Alan to get us started, and I will pull up the presentation. So just give me 1 second.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alexa, so much for that incredible introduction. We are really excited to present to the Jett community. So thank you so much for the opportunity. So today, Ellen and I are going to go over the work that we do here at All Wheels Up. It's going to actually cover everything from research, advocacy, and our direct-to-community programming that we provide one-on-one services, as well as guidance on how to travel with someone or as someone who uses a wheelchair. Next slide, please. So All Wheels Up's mission is to raise awareness for safer and more dignified accessible air travel through research and advocacy. Our primary goal is a wheelchair spot on airplanes and everything that encompasses that mission. So improved evacuations is part of that. Next slide. So All Wheels Up is over 10 years old. While the work that we're doing seems probably like a long road ahead, it's actually moving very, very fast. So All Wheels Up was started in 2011. I'm a parent of a child who has a neuromuscular illness, and I had a bad travel experience. And back in 2011, I just wanted to join another organization that was doing work to improve accessible air travel. And at that time, I learned that there wasn't any organizations doing research on how to improve accessible air travel. And so that's how this all began. I just wanted to improve accessible air travel for my son. So one day he could travel independently while using a wheelchair. In 2014, that's when I met Alan. Alan had his own organization called We Want Accessible Planes, and Alan can walk you through his work, and then that's and why we merged.
Yeah, so in 2014, one of my friends with DMD, he created a petition asking for airplanes to have a wheelchair spot, and I reached out to him, and we like started working on organization. And we after a while we found out All Wheels Up existed, and we decided to merge our organizations. And yeah, after I graduated college, like I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I kept looking for like a problem to solve, and just the biggest problem that kept it like popping up was just that airplanes aren't like wheelchair accessible. And yeah, I'm really like honored to have been working with Michelle since then.
Yeah, Alan and I probably talk every single day. He's probably so over me. But I have to say, if this is a really perfect example of one collaboration, two organizations coming together to create that perfect yin and yang. You know, Alan and the friend that he's talking about, you know, they really had this great social media following. They had a petition that was on fire. And our organization really had more of that business background, and we were set up and we had funding and things like that. So again, you know, I think it's sometimes looking outside of your own organization and seeing, you know, where can you partner with another organization. So, and for us, it really worked out and has really been why we've been able to grow and really connect with a lot of different communities. So in 2016, it took us a very long time to raise all the funds to conduct a crash test. But in 2016, we funded our very first crash test of wheelchair securement systems at an FAA approved testing facility. So we crash tested the tie downs that all of us have in our minivans, or the ones that you see, say, on a metro bus. We took those to a testing facility and crash tested those under the guidance of the FAA under airplane seat testing standards. So we learned that the wheelchair securement systems that are in our minivans today are crash tested at 20 Gs. And knowing nothing about aviation, we looked up what were those standards for an airplane seat, and it is 16 Gs. So obviously, just doing the quick math on that, we already know that our tie downs in our minivans already surpass the crash testing under the FAA guidelines. So that is what we started proposing to Congress and saying, take a look at these numbers. So we brought our crash test results to Congress in 2017. We also hosted our very first collaborative working group. What is that? We brought together every major stakeholder that would need to be involved to create a wheelchair spot on airplanes. So everybody from the airlines, the regulators, wheelchair manufacturers, the wheelchair securement companies, obviously people who use wheelchairs, all to provide input on what could the future of accessible air travel look like. Since then, All Wheels Up has hosted 3 additional stakeholder working groups. We just had one this past September, and we are hosting another one this upcoming September. And happy to report Airbus is sponsoring it. So to give you an idea, the industry is listening, and it's because we are providing facts to everything that we're requesting. So in 2016, like I said, we brought our 17, we brought our crash test results to Congress. And because we provided proof that a wheelchair spot was technically possible in the 2018 FAA Reauthorization Act, it was signed with a feasibility study where Congress funded a 2-year study on the feasibility of a wheelchair spot on airplanes. That study was published in 2021, where it agreed with All Wheels Up that a wheelchair spot on airplanes was technically feasible. Since then, since 2018, we hosted a TED Talk, we had another working group, and then COVID hit. You know, a lot of things happened. We were definitely told that, you know, there was no appetite for accessible air travel, but we wanted to make sure that we were still there for the community. And that's when we launched our Fly Safe Today program, because we wanted to make sure that in addition to funding research, we were making sure that the community had a way to fly safe today while we worked to improve the future. And later in this presentation, Alan will walk you through all of the details of that program. And last year in 2022, we were awarded National Accessible Air Travel Day. We're really excited about this day. A lot of other advocacy groups you'll start seeing this year starting to promote this day. What's really exciting about this day is on August 19th, the entire aviation industry celebrates National Aviation Day, which celebrates all of the accomplishments done in the aviation. We asked National Calendar to recognize on August 20th, National Accessible Air Travel Day, recognizing that while we have achieved so much in aviation, we also need to acknowledge that more work needs to be done. We've actually brought this to the White House, and they were really impressed with our thoughtfulness and how we wanted National Calendar to recognize this day. And the White House is now working to also include a proclamation in National Aviation Day with an additional verbiage with exactly what we just said, that the White House will acknowledge that while they celebrate the National Aviation Day, we need to recognize National Accessible Air Travel Day, and more work needs to be done. So definitely keep a lookout on our social media and other advocacy groups promoting National Accessible Air Travel Day. Alan, is there anything that I forgot?
Yeah, I just want to add that in the 2018 FAA reauthorization, it also included like the rule that airlines have to report how many wheelchairs they break every month, and also included like a disability bill of rights, which you can find on the FAA website now.
Absolutely. And you know what, we will talk about that proclamation where the airlines have to now submit all of their damages. We know that a lot of people, you know, say they don't, you know, put in a claim or complain when something happens. And we definitely want to, while you might not want to be a statistic, that is the only way we can get real numbers and show the aviation industry that there is a problem. I think it was 2 years ago, a big press release came out and said, our injuries and, you know, wheelchair damages are down, so we're doing a great job. And it's only because the community had given up on actually making complaints. It wasn't that they were getting better at it, it's just the numbers weren't there. If the numbers aren't there, then they're not going to put funding towards trying to make improvements if they think they're doing a great job. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind as, you know, if something gets damaged and you're like, do I really want to take the time to do this? It's not going to get better if the community doesn't come together and make those complaints. Next slide, please. So I'll leave this to Alan.
Yeah, so what we know is that in the US, there's 4 million wheelchair users, and every day, 29 of them are mishandled by the airlines, and that's like the legs of someone. That's their independence. That's like their freedom to be able to go around the world. And so the airlines spend $3 million each annually to repair and replace damaged wheelchairs. And it takes a long time for them to like repair your wheelchair. And some of the damage just like, yeah, like it can't be fixed. And this is for wheelchairs that cost like tens of thousands of dollars and are literally like the independence of people. And yeah.
And unfortunately, that number of 29 is actually rising. I think last month the DOT actually published an update, and it's now over 35 wheelchairs being damaged a day, which is really unfortunate. You would think that with, the more attention being held to, the airlines to improve accessible air travel, we would see this number reduce. And that is why we are now working with the industry also to work on teaching baggage handlers on how to, manage your wheelchairs. Next slide, please. So what do we do? I know we just discussed, the research that we do, and that's more of that engineering research. But we also fund capstones and white papers and all of the support data that the industry needs to make a really big decision on putting a wheelchair spot on airplanes. So we just funded with the University of Washington a roadmap. So how do we get from here to today with a congressional study saying a wheelchair spot is technically feasible to certification and implementation. And all of the work that All Wheels Up funds is open sourced on our website, and any stakeholder, any university, anybody can get access to any of the research that we fund. We also funded a very small budget impact model, and our budget impact model was showing the airline industry how they could save money if they implemented a wheelchair spot on airplanes. One of those numbers was using that $3 million a year, right, by each airline on repairing and replacing damaged wheelchairs. And that was just one of the numbers that we were able to show the airlines. We were able to show them tarmac turn time efficiency and other things such as, not having legal payouts. What we're doing this year is it's specifically a floor load and lumbar injury test. The MDA is sponsoring that study, and we will be showing how much weight an airplane floor can take to the weight of a wheelchair and an individual sitting in that wheelchair. That's going to be a really important test. There's a lot of universities right now underway and technical research, and right now that floor load that they're looking for is actually being done by manual math by the students, and so we're here to actually now get this number for them through an actual test. And then the crash tests that we've done in 2016 and 2018 will be peer reviewed, so university students can springboard off of that information in future papers. On the medical side, we're really excited to share that we will be publishing with the support of Cure Duchenne's doctors supporting a wheelchair spot on airplanes out of Duke University. So this will be the very first building block on medical research on why it will be really important for people to stay in their wheelchairs. We know things such as skin breakdown, but other things that we're going to start looking at is such as your pulmonary as well as cardiovascular systems. So there's a lot of great work that's being suggested now that we're starting to embark on medical research on the importance of a wheelchair spot on airplanes. We also have a pressure mapping study with Duke University that's probably leaning more towards a 2024 published date. We also have a project pending with Johns Hopkins called a morbidity study. We want to show the airlines that more wheelchair users would survive over the course of a 10-year period if they had that option to fly to their destination versus drive. As we know, I think it's about 60 to 80% of the wheelchair community drives to their destination versus taking a flight because of risk to self, risk to damage of their wheelchair. So this is a study, and it might sound like a terrible study, but this study was already done for children and lap-held babies, where lap-held babies have a 100% fatality rate in a crash. However, this morbidity study was done by the airlines, so parents would not have to purchase an extra seat because they showed over a 10-year period of time that more babies would survive if they flew versus driving to their destinations if parents started choosing driving due to cost of an extra airplane seat. So we're really just putting that paper, spinning it on its head, so to speak, and giving the same information back to the airlines and justifying why a wheelchair spot is necessary. Next slide. Sorry, I think we're ready for the next slide if possible. Perfect. Alan, I think you were going to take this one.
Yeah, I want to talk about our advocacy activities. And so Michelle was talking about our working group where we invite stakeholders, and like Michelle was talking about how that includes like wheelchair users, people in aviation, and people in the wheelchair industry. And like one of the things we talk about is like our 2023 FAA reauthorization, and that's going to pass this year. And as we talk about, there's several bills that are going to be in it that we're really like excited about. And so in our working group, just we go over like how we're going to get like the disability community to be doing advocacy to make like air travel more accessible. And we also talk about the Air Carrier Access Amendments Act. That's a bill that we're trying, that's been in Congress for quite a long time now, and it would make air travel a lot more accessible by like removing some of the barriers like in each airplane, and would also require like new airplanes to be more accessible.
Fantastic. I think we can go to the next slide. And I want to be very clear. There's a lot of great advocacy organizations all working together collaboratively to really push out one unified message for accessible air travel. And that is through the Air Carriers Access Amendments Act Coalition. And so you have advocacy groups from whether the blind organizations, the deaf organizations, organizations that cater to people who are in wheelchairs, and so on and so forth. And so because we've been able to come together as a larger group, we've had a stronger voice. So again, collaboration is key, and making an impact. So All Wheels Up was honored earlier last year when Congress came to us and said that they would like to invite us to submit language to the FAA Reauthorization Act. They were impressed with the work that we did in 2018, and so they invited us to provide formal language. So All Wheels Up asked for improved evacuations standards for people with disabilities. If you don't know, there actually are no standards for people with disabilities. So we want to make sure that happens. So even if a wheelchair spot does not happen, which we're pretty confident it will, we want to make sure that evacuation standards are set for people with all disabilities. And so we're proud to announce that at the end of 2022, Senator Duckworth's office introduced the EVAC Act, and we believe that will roll into the 2023 FAA Reauthorization Act. All Wheels Up was on the press release that was sent out for that as a contributor and sponsor. All Wheels Up has also asked for a Center of Excellence for Accessible Air Travel to be created. This would provide a 10-year source of funding to stakeholders and primarily universities, and giving universities this opportunity to research all forms of accessible air travel. So while All Wheels Up does focus on specifically a wheelchair spot on airplanes, if there, say, is another university out there that wants to research accessible air travel through, say, auditory needs, that there would be funding for that as well. We do have 2 universities that we're already working with and have already committed to sponsoring this. And so University of Washington and Wichita State NIAR. So we're really excited about seeing the work that will start coming out of the Center of Excellence. At our last working group, the one that we just hosted in 2022, the stakeholders said, great job on your economic impact study, but we need more. And to the point that it was just too large of a project for, say, All Wheels Up to conduct. And so we proposed that, just like in 2018, there was a feasibility study for a wheelchair spot on airplanes, we asked for Congress to fund an economic feasibility study. And we are happy to announce that that study is now in the Mobile Act, which was just introduced to the floor by Senator Duckworth this past Friday. So hopefully you saw that. And we definitely want your support in getting that out there. There's also funding in that Mobile Act for more research specifically on wheelchairs and crash testing to meet aviation standards. We've also asked for improved training, and a lot of advocacy groups are asking for this. However, All Wheels Up has asked for it to be a little bit more in depth, and we're looking for a certificate and accredited-based training. Right now, that is not happening, and so this is the only industry that does not require someone who is touching someone, lifting someone, to have proper certification. And so we're looking to change that. This is actually so well liked that other organizations from actually across the globe are looking to piggyback off of what we do here. And we want to actually roll this out as a national effort, but then international effort. So think of CPR, no matter where you are in the country or even the world, it is taught and administered the same exact way. And that's what we're looking for in regards to, how someone is being lifted and transferred, say, into an airplane seat. And that's just one little caveat of what we've been communicating to both Congress as well as the White House here. And I'm not sure, I think there might be another slide.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about some of the community programs that we have. The biggest one that we have is the Fly Safe Today. And in that one, we provide individuals with limited mobility and wheelchair users. We provide equipment such as the DAP slings and some of the other slings out there. And we're working on having it for this year. The application form should be on our website very soon. And we also educate people on the Air Carrier Access Act rights. And because right now, the Air Carrier Access Act was passed in 1986. And so it just said that airlines can't discriminate against wheelchair users. So we work on educating people about all the different rights and stuff while traveling. And we also have a newsletter that we keep up, and everyone should sign up for it on our website. And we keep people up to date with everything that we're doing and how they can get involved.
Awesome. So Alan was talking about our Fly Safe Today program and the services we provide there. We do provide one-on-one service. So if you are having difficulty in understanding how to fly, we can provide that one-on-one. We are offering the Bill of Rights card. I You can't probably see it. I've blurred out my screen, but this is a QR code on a PVC card direct to the DOT website. So think of it as an advocacy tool. If you are on an airplane and they ask you to leave and you're waiting for your wheelchair and they say, the flight attendant or someone asks, says you don't know your rights, you can say it's right here. I don't have to leave the airplane. I know my rights. I'm waiting for my wheelchair to come to the gate. And it, again, just a little advocacy in your pocket, so to speak. We do provide the ADAPTS evacuation sling. I do want to just make a minor correction there that we only provide the ADAPTS evacuation sling, and that is because it is the only sling that is approved by the FAA. Our program, our Fly Safe Today program, is the only direct-to-community approved program by the FAA. And so the FAA has taken the sling and actually did a demo in their offices to make sure that we could actually give this away in mass to the community. So just want to, specifically call that out. And then we also provide the special care harness. So there's a child weight and an adult weight, and that is a seatbelt that is manufactured by AmSafe, which is the #1 seatbelt manufacturer to all airplanes. And say you don't have trunk support, and we've seen and heard the stories of people using bath chair straps or even ropes, tying themselves into their airplane seats. This is a harness that goes over the airplane seat and straps in across and buckles in across your chest and locks into the current existing airplane seat that's on an airplane. And again, we have approval by the FAA to give this away. And the only caveat is you have to just apply for a waiver. Once you get it, tell them your flight date, and you'll get that waiver to bring on the plane with you. And you give that to the pilot or the flight attendant when you arrive. And so right now, we did not expect this program to be such, I guess you could say, an enormous hit. We actually have a huge waiting list to the point that we've actually had to close the portal. However, by the end of the week, we will be opening up a new portal just for the Bill of Rights cards, because we do have ample amount to keep giving those away. Ellen, any other comments?
No, I think we covered everything, and I think this really makes a difference for the DMD community, because we all want to travel more.
Yeah, perfect. And I did want to let everybody know that, at these stakeholder groups, we're actually moving along at a pace that's so quick. It's surprising and it's refreshing. There are almost 4, I guess not products, but 4 concepts now that are out there. If you are following, accessible air travel, there's 4 concepts now that are being researched or put into prototypes. Last year, a project that All Wheels Up specifically worked on was nominated for the Crystal Cabin Award. The Crystal Cabin Awards are the Oscars of aviation. And then this year, I am proud to announce 2 of the projects that All Wheels Up is mentoring on or collaborating on was nominated for the Crystal Cabin Awards. So just in the last 2 years, we're seeing different organizations submitting concepts for a wheelchair spot on airplanes, and that has never been done before. So a lot of progress is being made, a lot of attention is being put towards this in the industry. And so while we might feel that the industry is moving super slow, we need to recognize it's a very conservative and slow moving industry. And this concept of a wheelchair spot on airplanes is moving very, very quickly. I know we don't think it is, but it is. So I know that there's probably a lot of questions, and we are happy to start answering those.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was so informative, and we really appreciate it. I think, I echo what Alan said. I think this is so important, not only for the DMD community, but for the rare disease community in general. I think, we get questions all the time about how can we travel, and, it's great, that people can travel by car, but there are some places you can't really get to by car, and we shouldn't, you know, have to be limited by those options. So thank you guys for everything that you do. We do have some questions. Again, if you do have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A box. We will not be unmuting anybody. So if you do have any questions, please do put them in the Q&A. Again, Facebook Live, we will try to get to you guys, but we are primarily going to go through our Zoom. So I will go ahead and get started. So first question is, do you have any suggestions on how to best support hanging feet since they don't touch the floor? So, you know, must have travel items, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've seen a couple of ways that this has been done. There is actually like a little hammock that you attach to, say, your, what is that, the food tray, right? So the back of the food tray, and it's a true hammock, and you can put your feet in that. I have also seen people just use really long scarves and not the end of it, and then close, again, put it into their food tray and close the food tray. And then rest the feet within their own homemade hammock, so to speak. So those are, I thought, two really good hacks.
Awesome. And I will try, I'm going to have actually Julie find that and put it in the chat for everybody. Is there what's the best motorized wheelchair that you found to travel with?
I don't know. I don't think there's any one motorized wheelchair that's better. I think it's about how you actually prepare your wheelchair to travel. And I think that is, you know, taking off all of any of the extra parts. So if you can take off your headrest, if you can take off of your joystick, and you can take all of that onto the airplane in a bag with you at no extra cost, and it's not considered extra baggage, so it doesn't count towards your you know, personal baggage, your carry-ons rather. And
yeah, and I just want to add that there's like travel, like electric wheelchairs that people can buy that can fold up, and because every plane they have a closet where like you can store like a folding wheelchair, and that's definitely the safest way to travel. And yeah, there's definitely like several different kinds of wheelchairs that can do that.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, next one. How can we ensure that a customized wheelchair is not damaged while stored in cargo on a US commercial airline? And I'm going to actually say, is there a way not only US commercially, but also if people are traveling internationally as well?
Yeah, so I think what's really great is, you know, your questions are aligning with what the industry is talking about. So All Wheels Up did that study, saw that there's $3 million being paid out to wheelchair damages and replacements each year by each airline. So it's a pretty large number, right? And so the airlines, you know, are addressing that internationally and nationally. So through RESNA, the Rehabilitation Engineering Society of North America, as well as IATA, which is the International Aviation Transportation Authority, are now coming together to create standards on improved stowage of wheelchairs. And so it's still a conversation. We're still having meetings. You know, is it going to be, are they locking them down in the cabins themselves? Not in the cabin, in the luggage area. So it's still ongoing. You know, we've heard of people using bubble wrap on those sensitive parts. One that I like and I highly always recommend, if you're familiar with when you're packing and there's like this cellophane green cellophane like that you wrap your, you know, when you're packing, we recommend, if you can, wrap your entire wheelchair in that. We recommend that. We feel that, you know, it definitely will ensure parts from falling off or things like that. There is now going to be an international standard for a placard that goes onto your wheelchair. So it will have all the information about your wheelchair to the gate agent who's going to be managing your wheelchair when you hand it over. So everything from the weight, where to lift it, how to unlock the wheels, and it's all going to be on a QR code. And so once this is published, because I don't think it is published yet, we will be adding it to our website, but I know other organizations are adding it to their website. So I believe the airlines will be adding it to their websites, and it's something that you will be able to print out and have added to your wheelchair when you travel. And if you don't want to wait for that to happen, I definitely highly suggest putting a note on your wheelchair. This is my wheelchair. These are my legs. If you destroy it, I cannot participate in XYZ activity, and my wheelchair weighs how much, and please lift from wherever you know best is to lift your wheelchair. Now, while we don't want them necessarily to lift your wheelchair, they will probably end up having to physically lift your wheelchair onto the conveyor belt. So giving them that information will be really beneficial. You don't want them lifting it from, say, where your seat is, because that is obviously a very steady area for any one person to be lifting your wheelchair. I would say also put your wheelchair into the most condensed version possible. So don't leave your seat elevated, keep your footrests, down, anything that will make it the smallest version of itself possible.
Yeah, and actually on our website, we have a video of a wheelchair loaded onto the conveyor belt, and it's my wheelchair when I flew to the Parent Project Advocacy Conference, and you can see 4 people just struggle to lift up onto there. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do at the gate, that Michelle was talking about. Like you can take off the headrest, the joystick, anything that's valuable, that's easy to damage. We recommend that you take those, put them in a carry-on bag, and yeah, it's one of the best things to keep your wheelchair safe, because some of that stuff, if it's broken, it costs a lot, and it takes a long time to replace. So we recommend taking some of those things off. And if you can't take off the joystick, like we were saying earlier, you can just wrap it in bubble wrap.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. All right. Another question. How to handle transportation beyond the flight? So rentals seem to cost more than the flight. What is the most optimal and economical way that you guys have found, or do you have any suggestions on that for maybe a family of 4 trying to travel?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to say, as a family that used to travel, I completely feel your pain. We did rent a van once when we went to California, and it was an enormous cost, and they even had to drive it from one city to another, which we also had to pay for when we got to that airport. So yes, it's mind-boggling that say a Hertz or something does not have a wheelchair accessible van in their fleet, which I'm going to put a pin in that and circle back on that. But what I would do is see if you can investigate your city that you're going to. Does it have taxis that are, say, wheelchair accessible? That is becoming more and more common. We are definitely seeing that. So that is one thing. Also, take advantage of your hotel, if that's where you're going, but your hotel transport. All hotel transport has to have wheelchair access. And so they, usually it's not going to be on every single, say, pickup van that they have for you. You will have to coordinate with the hotel. Sometimes they have to maybe even borrow, say, another bus from another hotel, but they will be able to coordinate that for you. To circle back on, why isn't there, say, a wheelchair accessible minivan in a Hertz lineup, because All Wheels Up is promoting improving accessible air travel. And we know that, once that opens up for the community, We are now trying to work with these organizations to include that in their arsenal. And we've always said, it's definitely a demographic that, they can, gain loyalty from if they, cater to the community. So hopefully we'll see that in the coming years ahead.
Yeah, and if you plan everything ahead of time, that really helps. And there's some great services out there to help people like with disabilities get like accessible rooms and arrange some of the transportation. And in some places, like if you're lucky, they'll have like the public transportation will be like accessible. And I was mentioning before how like I was at the Parent Project Advocacy Conference, which so many people here go to, and like in DC, like we were able to take like the subway right from the airport. So like in some cities, that's possible instead of renting like a car. And and yeah, and one of the tips that we offer is like if you're traveling somewhere, like you can go to Google like Earth and you can see exactly how the streets and stuff are like, so you can know like what to expect.
I didn't think of that. That's a really good point. How does someone get the Airplane Lift Bill of Rights information card?
Yes, so we had taken our application down just due to the tremendous or overwhelming response. However, we will hopefully have a new Google form for that particular item up by the end of the week. So definitely check us out by Saturday. Hopefully we'll have something up for you just specifically for the Bill of Rights card, and we can get that out to you.
Awesome, thank you. Where can we purchase an adult harness? I found the child version, but not the adult version.
Yes, that is a little bit of the caveat. The child one is available on Amazon. The adult version, I hate to say, is only available through us. Let me see if I can try to see if AmSafe will sell direct to the community, because like I said, we currently don't have the funds to send that out. So I can definitely circle back with Alexa with maybe a contact because they don't have a website either. So let me see how I can get that to you all.
And I'm writing it down too, so that I know who asked, so that I have that information for you later.
Absolutely. I do have another hopeful tool is TSA Cares. If you are not familiar with TSA Cares, that is something you call ahead of time before your travel. You let them know that you're traveling as someone with a disability or with someone who has a disability, and they will meet you at check-in, and they will will have somebody be with you all the way through the TSA checkpoint to getting you to your gate. I have not used this service, but I know other board members on All Wheels Up have, and they highly recommend it. I'm sure just like everywhere else, everybody's experience will vary, but it is something, a resource that is there for you to use and take advantage of.
Thank you. That's awesome. Just general tips and information for someone who has never traveled with a travel power chair.
Unfortunately for the community, you have to prepare. So, we hear a lot from the airlines and even the airports and I'm not saying it's this community, but people who use wheelchairs just show up and they don't understand that, it takes a lot of planning for the airlines and the airports to take into account your wheelchair, especially if you have a 400-pound wheelchair, and to make sure that the flight can accommodate your wheelchair. So I would definitely, before you buy your ticket, and it sounds old school, but you should even buy your ticket, on the phone, and let them know that you are traveling with a wheelchair. If you can provide that, the weight of your wheelchair, the height of your wheelchair, they should be by the the day you want to fly, they will already know which aircraft is available, and you can have conversations of, can your wheelchair even fit in through the airplane door? So those are definitely things that can help you out before you, and hopefully eliminate some of the stress before you even get there. And also, just make for a better experience for everybody. Again, it stinks that, we have to do that. We would love to just show up, but we definitely feel pre-planning will make your trip easier.
Yeah, and on our website, one of the resources that we have, which really helps, is like one of the disabled travel influencers, Corey Lee. Like, there's a video on our website where he put a GoPro on his head so people can see how it's like using the transfer wheelchair, going like through the jetway, like into your seat. And yeah, I think just do all your research and know what to expect, and also like know what to do if something goes wrong, because lots of times people don't know there's something called like a complaint resolution officer on like every flight, and you can go to them like when things are going wrong, like when you're traveling in your wheelchair.
And to piggyback off of what Alan is saying there, now say you're on the back end of your trip, you land, say you're injured during a lift or your wheelchair is damaged, but if you are physically hurt, do not leave the airport. Once you leave the airport, the airline and airport are no longer responsible for you. So if you are hurt, have an ambulance come. We know that this is going to obviously just impact your trip, but once you leave the airport, they are financially no longer obligated, and they will not help pay for your hospital bills that might incur afterwards, or any doctor visits or anything like that. So you cannot leave the airport without, if you're injured, make sure someone at the airport and the airline knows and take an ambulance. And if your wheelchair is damaged, you have to make the complaint while you're there, so they can, refund, put your wheelchair through the system and make sure that they're paying for it and you're not.
And then someone did say in the chat, if you do travel often, getting TSA pre-checked can also help you get to your gate easier. So just a suggestion from another parent. So this isn't specific to air travel, but I think you guys might be able to answer the question. What about traveling on a train? Are they wheelchair accessible?
So yes, all trains are wheelchair accessible through the ADA. So there is a difference between the ADA and say the ACAA. And so the ADA came about 4 years after the ACAA, and that's why airplanes are not wheelchair accessible, but trains are. So trains and buses all fall under the ADA and are wheelchair accessible. So I believe it's in so many number of cars have to be wheelchair accessible. So whether you are taking like the local train, like a Long Island Railroad, that is wheelchair accessible, or Amtrak. Amtrak has, wheelchair accessible cars as well as wheelchair accessible sleepers. I've never taken the sleeper or Amtrak in general, but I do know in trying to plan taking one, the wheelchair accessible sleeper only sleeps 2. So I know if you're trying to plan that, that's going to be pretty difficult, especially as a family, but it's something to consider.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and the other thing with Amtrak is not every station is accessible. So you have to make sure that you go to the accessible stations. And yeah, throughout the Northeast corridor, it's just as great as air travel.
Awesome, thanks, Alan. All right, question. We just traveled, the chair was not handled well and we had to get adjustments. They had to pay for it, but they were recently informed that they need to make a claim. How does that work? Do they give you a print off, and are they responsible for all of the costs?
In the United States, yes, the airline is responsible for all of your costs. That is an interesting question. I don't know how to answer the rest of it in regards to how to submit the claim. I would, I guess, contact the airline that damaged it and ask them for next steps. Because that's interesting. I don't know. They should have probably given you that paperwork when you left the airport.
Yeah, and one of the things which really helps is keeping track of all the different people that you've spoken with, or like all the different people they've transferred you to, because like sometimes like, yeah, it'll be very complicated finding like the right person. So you definitely want to be like empowered, like when you're doing that.
Absolutely.
I also want to call out that, while we might not be necessarily in love with, our air travel for, wheelchair users, we actually do have the most robust, I guess you could say, law out there, and where your wheelchair is fully compensated. If this, say, happened overseas, you only get, I think, up to $2,000 to repair or replace your wheelchair. So I know overseas they are really looking to also fix that and work to emulate our system, where if the airline damages it, that they would get full coverage. So.
Awesome.
And so I'm sorry, but also keep that in mind if you're traveling into another country on not a U.S. air carrier. That is what's going to happen to you, is you're under their laws, not ours. So to keep that into consideration when picking your flight.
Good point. Speaking of international flights, do they have an aisle wheelchair for using the bathroom? Is the bathroom accessible? And I would love to know the answer to that question as well.
Yes. Double aisle airplanes are, I'm going to use wheelchair accessible loosely. They're aisle chair accessible. So yes, I forget, there was a ruling that all double aisle aircraft have to be wheelchair accessible. They have to have an aisle chair on board if they are a U.S. air carrier. So that should be there. And so if it isn't, obviously you need to, make complaints and things like that. So that is happening. On the single aisle, we are working, I don't want to say we, All Wheels Up doesn't work usually on lavatories, but there is going to be a ruling for single aisle aircraft to have a wheelchair aisle chair accessible lavatory. Now we also have to keep in mind that it's one thing for a ruling to happen. It's another thing for actual product to exist in a catalog for an air carrier to purchase. So for example, there is not a wheelchair accessible lavatory for an airline to even purchase today, even if there was a mandate. So we know of organizations that are now in R&D process, and they're, creating that. But again, it's showing the industry that there's a need. And so those products can be created for the airline to purchase. So a lot of moving parts to the questions.
Yeah, because one of the things that's tough is because like most airplanes, like today in the US, are all single aisle airplanes, and yeah, the aisle wheelchair, it's very tough. Like there's no like headrest, there's no laterals. Like it's probably one of the worst kind of wheelchairs you could ever like be in. And like we've seen people with disabilities like use like catheters or like adult diapers, and it's tougher like using those, but like that's like another option that can help. Because on the other side, like we've seen some people go through some really tough things where they'll dehydrate themselves and they'll just not eat for days before the flights, and those are really like unhealthy like to do.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I think that's all the questions that we had, and right on time. So everybody, thank you so much for your questions. If you do have any other questions, Alan and Michelle did share their emails, but you can also feel free to reach out to me at alexa@jettfoundation.org, and I will make sure that it gets to them. Thank you all again for being here today. We hope to see you again at another webinar soon. We have one coming up on June 8th or 10th. I'm not positive, but it's about transition of care. So please join us for that. Thank you, Michelle and Alan, so much for being a part of this. And providing the education and the knowledge to the community. I think it's so important. And again, thank you for everything you guys are doing, because, as Michelle said earlier, this is a labor of love, and Alan too. So thank you for all you do for our community, and, just helping make air travel accessible, because it truly is so important. So thank you guys again. Yes, this will be again available for replay. We will have it recorded and up on our website, and everybody who registered and attended will get that recording. There is a survey at the end, so please, if you have time, please fill it out. We can only improve and do better as people help us, so please fill that out if you are able. And thank you again all for being here, and we appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Thanks for having us.